Hello and welcome to Last Stand for Liberty. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the idea of the lesser of two evils, and I want to dispel this lie. A lot of people use this to justify who they're voting for. If they're voting for Barack Obama, he's the lesser of two evils, or if they're voting for Mitt Romney, he is the lesser of two evils. This is actually all a lie. It's meant to confuse us, and actually these parties both represent the exact same thing, so there is no lesser of two evils. If you look at war, some of the major subjects, right? If you take a look at war, right now we're currently running these drone strikes in 5 or 6 different nations that we haven't even declared war on. I compare that to, would you accept the idea of China doing missile strikes because they determined that people in the city of Seattle were a threat to their national security? And I think that most people with any kind of common sense would say, no, that's absurd. That would be an act of war. So we're right now we're in Somalia, we're in Libya, we're in Uganda, we're in Pakistan, we're in Yemen, and we're in Syria. And none of these places we've declared war on, yet we're running missile strikes in these cities, in these countries all the time. And that is a really bad and scary precedent. So we know that President Obama does it because it's currently happening under his administration. Would Mitt Romney be any different? And the answer there is no. Mitt Romney has expressed the fact that he would still run these drone strikes, and he's never called President Obama out on not declaring war on any of these nations. And we know that Mitt is portraying himself, and I believe him to be, a neocon. So we don't see any difference there as far as the war goes. For all of President Obama's supporters, I have to say, these drone wars are a big sticking point with me. There was a 16-year-old boy his last name was Al-Awlaki. He was actually killed in a drone strike, and he was a U.S. citizen. Now, his father was reportedly a member of Al-Qaeda, and maybe his father was a jerk, and maybe his father needed to be killed. Maybe his father was a threat. But I still think that capturing these people and bringing them to trial and putting them through the justice system according to the Constitution is the appropriate way to deal with this. The other thing you've got to look at, aside from these drone wars, when it comes to the whole subject of war, is defense spending. Mitt Romney actually wants to increase it. Now, Mitt Romney is saying that he is going to cut and bring us out of the budget deficits and have a balanced budget, yet defense spending is anywhere from 40 to 50% of the annual budget, and he's saying he's going to increase that. Obama is saying he is not going to cut it, and so, both of these guys are clearly irresponsible on the subject of war. Now, if you look at economics, let's look at economics. This is another major issue that faces our country, the economy. Okay, if you just start with the Federal Reserve and the bank bailouts, both of these guys support bank bailouts, which resulted in, one of the largest transfers of wealth from the middle class to the wealthiest people in the world. And the fact that both of these guys support this shows you that there is no lesser of two evils when it comes to economics. The other thing is the Federal Reserve System itself is something that just needs to be abolished. The Federal Reserve, since they've presided over our economic system, essentially, the dollar has lost over 95% of its value. And so if that isn't a reason to just completely disband this system, I don't know what is. It's a complete failure, and it's obvious. Both of these guys support it. When it comes to economics, there is no lesser of two evils. Right now, we're $16 trillion in debt. When George Bush ran, he ran as a fiscal conservative. He ran up the national deficit. Barack Obama talked about how irresponsible that was. He came in and spent at an even higher rate than George Bush did and ran up the deficit. And now we're $16 trillion in debt. And so, the question is would Mitt Romney change any of that? Well, no, he's not going to change that. He's not going to change that because the amount of cuts that you would have to do to spending would be so draconian that he would immediately be booted out of office. And so he can talk about a balanced budget, but that's all a lie. It's the same way that George Bush talked about he was a fiscal conservative, and look what he did. The other thing is deficit spending. When you look at the deficit in 16 trillion and you divide that amongst the households that actually pay taxes, you come up to around $95,000 in debt for each tax-paying household. And I'm talking about the federal tax base here. So is Mitt Romney going to change that? No, he's not going to change that. We know that Barack Obama is a big spending guy. That's what he's done throughout his administration. So when it comes to economics, there is no lesser of two evils. So let's talk about the last part of this that I want to touch on, and that's liberty. There have been some atrocious invasions on our civil liberties, and it's just about to the point where civil liberties are non-existent. President Obama signed legislation to enable 30,000 military surveillance drones to fly over the skies of the United States to spy on American citizens. Mitt Romney didn't denounce this, and by not denouncing this, we assume that he supports it. 30,000 military drones in the skies to spy on you and me. I'm not a big fan, oddly enough. So I think that is a clear example of some of the ways that President Obama's had some clear missteps on civil liberties. And of course, Mitt Romney, if anything, promises to be as bad, if not worse. Let's talk about the Patriot Act. It cracks me up that liberals were all over Bush when the Patriot Act was signed. Rightfully so. I was with you on that. The Patriot Act was not patriotic. It allowed for the illegal warrantless wiretaps. It allowed for the monitoring of all electronic communications by the NSA, and it's currently being done. So any email you send, any phone call, anything is monitored by the NSA. It's illegal. It's unconstitutional. They don't have a warrant to do it, and you shouldn't be treated as a criminal, until you do something wrong. They should have some probable cause. And so these things are complete violations of the Constitution. President Bush signed the initial Patriot Act. President Obama renewed it. Civil liberties, Guantanamo Bay. Here's another clear example. We've got these prisoners, these foreign prisoners held indefinitely in detention centers, yet we've never tried these people. President Obama spoke out about it. He said that Bush was wrong and that we need to put these people through the American court system. And then he got into office, and what did he do? He renewed it, he expanded it, he upgraded it. So now Guantanamo Bay was bigger than President Obama when he took office. And he was the guy that was going to shut it down. Well, is Mitt Romney going to make any changes there? No, he's a big supporter of this. He doesn't care about the Constitution. He also agrees that we should keep Guantanamo Bay open. He agrees that we do not have to try these people. And he agrees in just with flat out violating the Constitution. So let's talk about the National Defense Authorization Act. The problem is when you allow these civil liberties to slip on other people you might not like say, suspected terrorists, eventually these same things are going to be used against you. Now, in this particular case, with the NDAA, there's a provision in there, the 1021 provision, that allows for the indefinite detention of American citizens if they determine that you're a terrorist. So the government calls you a terrorist, and now they have the right to indefinitely detain you without habeas corpus, without a trial, without a jury, without any of the guarantees of the U.S. Constitution. Now, even scarier, there were some people that started a lawsuit against the government to stop this from being implemented, and that specific provision, and the Obama administration fought them to have it included back in to the National Defense Authorization Act. Now, when questioned on this, Mitt Romney was asked if he would have signed the National Defense Authorization Act, and he said absolutely he would. So we know that on the subjects of war, economics, and civil liberties, there is no lesser of two evils. Don't buy the lie, vote third party. Thanks, everyone. Hey, check us out on Facebook, check us out on Twitter, and follow along and help to educate your fellow human beings. We've got a responsibility to our country. Let's stand up. Let's make a change.